I hear that mandatory volunteerism, it would be a great way to fill the provincial gaps, but volunteerism by definition is freely giving your time
Hmm.
and your energy and your spirit. And when it becomes a forced labor, I am concerned
Hmm.
about losing that character, that culture of individuals wanting that civic engagement. So even though there is a volunteer shortage and every organization in British Columbia needs volunteers, from board of directors to service delivery volunteers, forcing people to give their time may not be the answer that we want to approach, but I think that there is opportunities to have that, whether it be through the school curriculum programs, right out of college, universities, all of there are proper times and places for a forced volunteerism experience, but I don't think across the board is the solution. I think there are lots of opportunities for the provincial government, federal government, as well as local government to be able to support building a healthy volunteer capacity. When you see a municipality invest in their local nonprofits to make sure that they have everything they need to be able to provide the social programs that residents rely on, those are healthy communities. And in order to do that, I mean, they're the little things like, free transit for volunteers, maybe a special pass for volunteers that are given out to nonprofit organizations. Provincial government could look at some sort of subsidy program or tax cuts or some sort of tax credits. I mean, they give tax credits to volunteer fire department members. So there are opportunities that are out there. I think that just the government needs to invest in volunteerism. And I want to put a plug. In 2026, the UN declared it the International Year of the Volunteer. We need to get ready for that. If we're going to be a part of a UN sustainability goal, we want to make sure that British Columbia is ready. I sit on the National Volunteer Strategy that Volunteer Canada is currently creating, and it's really impactful. BC needs something similar. Volunteer BC has been working on it at a very small level. We want to build it up. We want to make sure that everybody's involved in creating that provincial strategy to build volunteer capacity.
We know that your colleagues at Volunteer Canada are perhaps feeling the pinch when they've said volunteering has declined, impacted by factors like the COVID-19 pandemic, inflation, labor shortages, and StatsCan data from June noted Canadians over 15 years old who volunteer for charities and nonprofits dropped from 41% to 32% between 2018 and 2023. Have you noticed that, Subrina?
Nonprofits are needing to recruit more and more volunteers. And where are those volunteers coming from? People have had to go back to work to make ends meet. So volunteers are really critical. And I think we're going to get to a pinch point where people are needing to decide if they need to go back to work versus volunteer. And we're losing volunteers to going back to work to be able to provide for themselves. So I don't know what the solutions are. I just know that we are at a position that if things don't change pretty quick and organizations are not funded to be able to have a proper volunteer program, including volunteer managers that can look after those volunteers to make sure that they're meeting all the health and safety and screening to make sure they have volunteers that are, protecting the vulnerable sector that maybe that nonprofit works with. If we don't have organizations in our province that are taken care of properly and managed properly, I'm fearful. I'm fearful for the future of volunteerism.
Peter in White Rock. Thanks for waiting, Peter. What do you think?
Well, I think public service is a heck of a good idea, but it has to be voluntary. It's such a violation of individual rights to force people to do that. And we're a fairly wealthy country. We can afford to pay our volunteers decent salary, maybe offer rewards in terms of tuition when they go back to school or whatever. I wanted to mention that I've done a fair amount of volunteer work, especially for groups like Oxfam. And in terms of mandatory service, I found myself 40, 50 years ago in the U.S. Marine Corps and had to escape because I didn't want to kill Vietnamese people. So I have a problem with that kind of mandatory service. But there's so many things that we need to do in this country, and we have the resources. We can do it. But again, it needs to be voluntary. So offer people, rewards for their service, and then it's win-win for everybody, rather than forcing people to do things they may not want to do, and it would especially probably impact lower-income people who didn't have as many options.
Let's go to Douglas then in Dragon Lake. Douglas, thanks for waiting on the line. What do you think about volunteering and a version of public service, be it mandatory or voluntary?
Yeah, I'm not. Thank you for taking my call. I'm not supportive of a mandatory situation, but I think if we make the incentives strong enough, that's going to take care of itself. I just want to go back. I participated with an amazing group of people in the first year of Katimavik.
Whoa.
And so in
May I ask what year what that was?
In 2027, we will be celebrating our 50th anniversary, and we're all going to get together again, all of those that still remain.
Wow.
And we've met quite a few times over the years, so I really want to make a plug for a rejuvenated program similar to that.
I do think military service is a good thing if we're in peacetime. The problem is when it gets hot, people die. But I think Canada sooner or later is going to have to figure this out. Young people are going to have to figure this out. And I think we need a strong Canada. And to me, I would love to see who volunteers, number one. And if it becomes mandatory, who's going to show up to fight?
Don, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's probably necessary to have some kind of a mandatory service. I mean, how many kids would show up to school in high school if it weren't mandatory, really? But we need to kind of go beyond that. I mean, what does Switzerland do? Everybody has some time. They go out on weekends, I'm not sure, and learn some skills that would be defensive skills in necessary times and otherwise just useful skills.